Welcome to lecture series of our human resource development course. Today we are exploring learning network theories and its practical applications in HRD context. Today we would understand how learning networks function as dynamic systems that organize the relationship between the learning and work within organizations. And by the end of this lecture, you would be able to explain the core principles and the dynamics of learning network, design learning networks for specific organizational context, and critically evaluate the effectiveness of the different network approaches. But before that, let's understand what is learning network theory, LNT, which is developed by Poell, von Krogt and colleagues, provides a framework for understanding how learning is organized within work context. Unlike traditional learning approaches that view learning as a management tool, LNT recognizes employees as the central actors who co-organize learning based on their own ideas and interests. The theory emerged from the critiques of the dominant HRD approaches that created a learning elite by focusing only on those willing to learn continuously, treated learning as purely uh, functional for work performance, and disregarded employees as organizers of their own learning. It pursued the uniform learning arrangements across diverse organizations. But the LNT, which is based on different principles, and the core principles on which the LNT operates, let's look at that. The first is the learning networks exist in every organization, irrespective of the structure, whether hierarchical, metrics, or team-based, people learn through organized activities. The second, the learning is co-produced by interactions among various actors, like employees, managers, training consultants, and the external party, each bringing their own theories and strategies and mindset. And the third, the learning networks are dynamic, taking various shapes depending on both the actor dynamics and the work characteristics. The main components of this learning network theory are three. They are interrelated and interconnected. They are the learning actors, learning processes, and the learning structures. The learning actors, like individuals who are engaged in organizing learning activities, like internal actors like employees, training staff, managers, personnel officers, and the external actors like professional associations, the trade unions, HRD consultants, the government authorities, etc., etc. The learning actors are stakeholders who act based on their own theories and interests regarding work-related learning. The theory particularly emphasizes employees who organize primary work processes as central learning actors. Then the second is the learning processes. The learning actors interact to organize three key processes: the development of the learning policies, influencing the general direction of the learning network, what people should learn, how they should learn. And this includes reflecting on the learning needs, discussing the work innovations, and listing required competencies. Then the development of the learning programs, the creating coherent set of learning activities. This involves introducing new work and elements, scanning external training markets, creating problem solving quality circles, and finding ways for activities to reinforce each other. And then the execution of the learning program. The actual learning activities include job coaching, solving difficult work-related problems, taking online courses, asking experienced colleagues for help, and receiving work instructions. And then the learning structures. Over time, stable patterns emerge that provide context for organizing learning activities. And the structures and the content structure, the profile of the learning programs, whether they are learned directed or the facilitator directed, on the job or off the job, and what learning themes they address. Then the organizational structure, the division of the task, the responsibilities among actors, who tends to play what role in which learning processes, and who is authorized to do what. Then the learning climate, the prevailing norms and the values regarding learning in a organization, what qualifications are valued, and what are considered normal ways of learning. And for this, there is need to understand the four types of learning networks in the organization. When we examine how organizations approach employee learning and the development, we can identify four distinct types of learning networks that operate within a three-dimensional organizational space. Each of these networks represent a fundamentally different philosophy and approach to how learning occurs within the workplace. The first type is the liberal learning network. In this approach, individual employees take complete ownership of their own learning journey by creating their own learning activities. The learning policies in this network are largely implicit from organizational perspective, meaning there's no formal structure directing how learning should occur. Then the program development rests entirely in the hands of the individual employees, who identify and create relevant learning situations based on their own needs and interests. The execution of such programs is completely self-directed, with employees managing their own learning processes. This creates an unstructured, individually oriented environment characterized by loosely coupled contractual relationship between the organization and its employees. The overall climate is liberal and entrepreneurial, encouraging employees to take initiatives uh, in their own professional development. And the second type is the vertical learning network, which represents a more traditional top-down approach to organizational learning. Here, the management engages in linear planning of learning activities, maintaining a tight control over the learning processes. Learning policies are developed exclusively by management and then translated into pre-designed programs that employees are expected to follow. The program development is thorough and pre-planned by human resource development and training staff, leaving little room for individual customization. The execution involves guided delivery to employees, where learning is essentially delivered to them rather than created by them. This structure is centralized and formalized, operating within the regulated climate. Despite its growing unpopularity in the modern organization theory, this approach remains common in the large organizations due to its perceived efficiency and control. Third approach is the horizontal learning network, which emphasizes organically integrated learning processes in direct opposition to the mechanical planning methods. Unlike the vertical approach, learning policies in horizontal network developed through learning from experiences as programs actually progress rather than being predetermined. Program development occurs incrementally while being executed, allowing the real-time adaptation and improvement. The execution model focuses on the process counseling within the learn and created program, meaning facilitators help guided learning. The structure is horizontal, featuring egalitarian relationship and an integrative climate that promotes collaboration. This network is distinctly organization oriented and aimed primarily at the problem solving, making learning directly relevant to the workplace challenges. And finally, we have the external learning network, which represents a fundamentally different approach where coordination occurs from outside the organization through professional associations and industry bodies. Learning policies in this network are inspired by the new developments within specific employee professions, ensuring that learning stays current with the industry standards and innovations. Program development involves work innovations introduced by the broader professional field, bringing external expertise and cutting edge practices into the organization. Execution is advisory in nature, with external actors helping to adapt work processes to accommodate innovations. The structure is externally directed, built on professional relationship that extends beyond organizational boundaries. This creates an inspiring climate that remains open to innovations from outside the organization, fostering continuous connection with the broader professional communities and industry developments. Each of these four learning network types uh, offers distinct advantages and challenges, and understanding their characteristics help organizations choose the most appropriate approach for their specific context, culture, and learning objectives. Let's look at the network dynamics and applications. This moves along three dimensions. The liberal vertical dimension represents the amount of centralization and the regulation in the learning network. The liberal horizontal dimension stands for varying focus on group or individual criteria for problem solving and learning. And the liberal external dimension describes how learning network may be more or less inspired by the innovations developed outside the organization. Let's take one example. Consider a retail organization implementing new customer service technologies. The liberal network, the individual employees explore digital tools based on the personal interest. The vertical network, the management designs standardized training programs for all its staff. The horizontal network, the cross-functional teams develop learning approaches and they collaborate. And the external network, the industry associations provide best practice frameworks. And most effective approaches combine elements from multiple network types, creating hybrid forms and address different training needs. Now, I will go for the critical considerations. While learning network theory offers valuable insights, consider these three limitations. The power dynamics. The theory may underestimate how organizational power structure constrains employee agency in learning. Second, the resource requirements. Not all organizations have resources to support the diverse network approaches. And then the cultural context. The framework emerged from the European context and may need adaptation for other cultural settings, so ours. And then the measurement challenge, that evaluating network effectiveness remains complex. And towards the end, I'll say that LNT provides a sophisticated framework for understanding how learning is organized in work context. By recognizing employees as the central actors and acknowledging multiple ways of organizing learning, it offers alternatives to traditional top-down training approaches. So, for HRD practitioners, learning happens through network, not just formal programs. Different organizational contexts require different network approaches, and the social capital theory complements network design. Employee agency in learning should be recognized and supported. Thank you so much for your attention, and please review the required readings of Poell and others, and Cho and Egan for deeper understanding of learning network applications. see you very soon on the next issue of HRD, how HRD works there in the organizational context. Thank you so much.